Hello everyone, David here bringing you guys a series of new figure reviews. As I showed you in my Q&A video, I got a new 4-pack of Arkham Asylum figures that DC Collectible is re-releasing, probably to build hype up towards the Arkham Knight figures that they're going to be releasing next year. And the first batch is a 4-pack consisting of Arkham Asylum Batman, Joker, Harley Quinn, and Scarecrow, which you see before you here, and I will now be reviewing. I got them because I really wanted an Arkham Asylum Batman, and of course I'll be getting the Arkham City 4-pack that comes with Arkham City Batman and that one. And I already own Origins, even though it's kind of ironic because I have not played Arkham Origins. It's probably the only Arkham game that I haven't played yet. But I do own that Batman, and so I wanted to complete the collection, but the only way to do it is to get the 4-packs. So it came with this guy, and so I feel kind of obligated to review him. And so here we got Scarecrow from the 2009 Rocksteady game Arkham Asylum. As you can see, he is designed after the way he was designed in the 2009 video game, and as far as I can tell, I don't believe that they pulled from any other source when it came to the design of Scarecrow in this game, because all the other characters had some sort of inspiration from previous iterations of that character within the Batman universe, you know. Batman himself even kind of looks like a mixture between different forms of Batman, from the animated series to some of the more grittier stuff that has been released recently, especially the Nolan universe. Even the Batmobile kind of resembles that. Most notably, Two-Face also kind of has inspirations from both the Nolan version of Two-Face to the one from the animated series and whatnot. But I feel like Scarecrow was the only one that they went ahead and created a much more original look, because he definitely does not look like Scarecrow did in the Nolan verse, and he doesn't necessarily resemble the Scarecrow from the animated series or even the comic books, because he looked more like an actual Scarecrow in those things rather than the really monstrous thing you see before you. And I really dig it. I really do like the design for Scarecrow, because he looks what he's supposed to look like. Terrifying. I mean, you look at this in the middle of the night and you're gonna freak the fuck out, okay? And that's one of the things that I think that DC Collectible got right with this figure, even though they were known as DC Direct back in 2009 when this was released. And that's the rather exquisite detail and sculpting that they had on this figure. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this guy, because I think he looks amazing. The detail and the sculpt they got on this guy, ooh, let me focus here, is just outstanding. And I mean, that's for a 6-inch figure. This figure stands at about 6 inches tall. I don't really have any figures with me to compare him, but he does stand at about 6 inches, as all DC Collectible figures do. The only problem is that DC Collectible was so bent on capturing the presence of Scarecrow, the terrifying presence of Scarecrow in this figure, that despite getting it right with the sculpting and the detail, they went ahead and posed him in a way that kind of, you know, it really, not only does it reduce his stature a bit, because DC Collectible figures are supposed to be about 6 inches, but they posed him in a rather hunched position. And don't get me wrong, I like that, because that's very reminiscent of the character. He does that an awful lot in the video game. He hunches over to give him that much more menacing presence, but that also not only reduces his height and kind of makes him a little bit shorter than the other figures, but it also brings another problem that I'll discuss later on. But he is in a hunched over position, so that kind of reduces his actual height. But anyways, that just adds to the accuracy of this figure because of how well he's detailed and sculpted. My favorite part would have to be the head. Let me zoom in here and bring up the camera. The head sculpt is amazing. Not only the paint applications, but also the way they molded the head. It's arguably my favorite part of the figure. It feels right. It's sculpted very well. They captured the really nice rendition of Scarecrow that they made for this game, down to the very last T. I mean, look at that. That looks great. And what is probably my second favorite part of the figure in terms of the detailing and the sculpt will have to be the hand. The needle hand that he has here that carries his hallucinogenic drug. It just looks great. They even went ahead and added these little rubber rubber hoses to attach to the needle fingers to add more detail, and it just looks amazing. I mean, sure, you can kind of tell that it's rubber here, and it's a little warped. Came a little warped from the packaging, but once you straighten it out a little bit, it looks great. I mean, I just really dig this hand, as well as the entire sculpt of the figure. And like I said, they captured so many well-made details to bring the figure to life within a 6-inch DC collectible figure. I mean, the pants look great. You even got a little bit of paint decal going on there to show the little restraints that he has on his pants, and it all looks great. Also, one of my other favorite pieces of detail would have to be the ropes that he has here to tie his pants up, as well as hold down his mask. They're made out of rubber, but they detailed them so well, and they etched them in so well, and they added this paint that feels like a matte finish, that it almost feels like actual rope. I'm not kidding. I mean, it feels amazing. And so they also got these other rubber pieces here that you can tell it's rubber, but because they're separated pieces, they also add to the detail of the figure. And they even got the very sickening detail here on his body, showing his ribs. I mean, this is crazy. Now, the back of the packaging said that all of these figures come with a new deco, so I'm assuming that they went ahead and kind of corrected some of the mistakes and redid some of the paint applications, as well as the sculpting. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at any photos from the previous releases of this figure, especially from the 2009 release simultaneously with the video game, but I'm happy with what I got. This figure looks great, and he's definitely a figure worth of showing off on the mantelpiece. Now, it's funny that I mention that he would look great on the mantelpiece, because unfortunately that's probably all that he'll be good at. That's probably the only thing that he'll be good for when it comes to owning this figure, because that's when my biggest and possibly only complaint comes in with this figure. And unfortunately, despite only being one complaint, it's a very hefty one that really brings the figure down, and that is the huge limitations to his articulation. Like I said, the DC Collectible were so bent on representing the figure so well that they put him in this position where he's hunched over. And because of that, his torso is static like that. He is hunched over and he is not going to bend upright. It would have been nice to have a ab crunch joint here so that we can straighten him up. Along with that, there's another part of the body, part of his body that doesn't exactly move at all and is in a static state, and those are his knees. His knees do not bend whatsoever. I knew that his torso was static like that. I saw that from outside of the packaging. I'm like, okay, obviously that's not going to move. But what I wasn't expecting was that you can't bend his knees either. His knees are stuck like that. Now, I do understand that the knees kind of complement his hunch over here, because these are bent this way, whereas his torso is bent the opposite direction, so they complement one another. So if you hit that sweet spot, you'll be able to stand him upright. You just need to position him in the correct way. And he's kind of tipping over a little bit, but as long as you bend it in a certain way and hit, like I said, hit that sweet spot, you'll balance him out rather well. But it's a shame that comes at a cost of having very limited articulation. And I understand not having a ab crunch. I mean, many figures don't come with those, but no articulation whatsoever in the knees. I mean, the knees is one of those places that need articulation. Almost every figure has one, and it's a shame that there's literally none to really move the legs in any way whatsoever. Besides that, all of his other points of articulation are pretty standard. You got the head joint here that allows his head to be rotated 360 degrees, as well as move up and down slightly, enough to kind of give him a different look. And he also has arm articulation that rotates vertically 360 degrees, as well as moves inwards and outwards, although it stops right about there, mainly because of this hood, this piece on that's part of his hood. And you also got a joint there at the elbow that bends about that far. And I believe that is it for the arm, except for the wrist here on his hand, as well as his other hand. Now, I understand that because this hand comes with the needle hand, there is some restrictions to the wrist joint because of these little rubber hoses that they attached. I still take them because they add to the detail of the figure, but it is a little disappointing to know that this hand cannot rotate all the way, even though the joint is there to be able to do so. But if you don't want to risk breaking these hoses right here, I suggest you don't. Fortunately, they compensated for that by adding a forearm joint here that allows his whole forearm to rotate 360 degrees, so that's pretty cool. He also has a torso joint right here that allows his upper body to rotate a full 360 degrees, but that's kind of creepy. You got an upper leg joint that moves inwards and outwards, although it's a little bit limited because they molded his ass that way to where you really cannot flex his leg back any more so than that. He also has an upper thigh swivel right about there, rotates 360 degrees. You also got a shin joint right there, as well as a foot joint that rotates 360 degrees and pivots barely like so. And like I said, that's actually about it. It's a shame that he doesn't come with any knee articulation or torso articulation, or upper torso I should say, for that matter, to be able to really stretch this character out to put him in a variety of poses. But because he's affixed like this, he's kind of stuck with this menacing pose that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's menacing, but it would be nice to maybe put him in like a goofy, ironic pose to make him look like not menacing. I mean, that would be highly amusing, but we're kind of stuck with this. The only accessory, see, there we go. It gets kind of frustrating to hit that sweet spot to be able to stand him upright, and there you go. The only accessory that he comes with is this little bag that carries his powder, his hallucinogenic powder that he throws around to be able to drug his victims and plunge them into a world of terror like he did with Batman. And it's a nice little accessory. It's detailed rather well. It has some nice paint applications, as you can see right there. It looks like an actual bag. It's made out of rubber, but a really hard rubber, rather thick rubber that makes this almost indestructible, but it's rubber nonetheless. The only downside is that I feel like this area here where it's supposed to be tied up is a little too thin. It's sculpted a little too thin to where when I pulled this out of the box, this top piece kind of started bending a little bit, and it actually had me worried that at any second, if bend with enough force, this top piece here, it's going to break off because of how thin this is. So that's a little worrisome, but anyways, he's meant to simply hold the bag with his non-needle hand. I mean, that's the only way that he's going to be able to capable of doing that. So there you go, and there we have Scarecrow from Arkham Asylum. Again, not a bad figure. I was very, very surprised, pleasantly surprised, with the amount of detail and attention and care to the sculpting of this figure. I mean, he looks outstanding, but it's a shame that it comes at a cost of sacrificing an awful lot of articulation, especially in the knees. I mean, I was not expecting that whatsoever, so I was highly underwhelmed with that. So, in the end, I feel like Scarecrow is one of those figures that I really do not mind owning, but I could have easily survived passing it up. So for that, I give Arkham Asylum Scarecrow here a 7 out of 10. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya.